Moshi Moshi. Let's talk about the future. Welcome to Evergood Podcast, where we talk about all things healthcare, education, and innovation. And tonight, I'm very excited to have Dr. Casey Kirkhart join us this evening. Actually, it is an evening recording to talk about his work in the Central Coast and especially launching a new graduate medical education program in Santa Cruz.
That's right.
There's so much more, so please do share more details about who you are.
Oh my gosh. Kristy, I'm so excited to have this conversation. This is such an exciting time to be a part of medical education in the Central Coast, with our residency programs happening, new residency programs, medical schools coming. I mean, this is a really exciting time. So I'm really, really jazzed to have this conversation with you. I'm Dr. Casey Kirkhart. I'm a family doctor. I've been in medicine for, 25 years since my residency training. And I've been in the community health space for most of that time, working in federally qualified health centers, community health centers and leading those efforts for about 16 years. And I was, including here in Santa Cruz, and I was one of the founding faculty for the Morehouse School of Medicine Dominican Hospital Family Medicine Residency Program in Santa Cruz. Um, so I'm so happy to share more about that. I know we'll dive into what that's like and what it's like having learners in our health centers and in our hospitals and in our community serving all of our patients.
So were you one of the founding core faculty? What was your position?
Yeah, so I was chief medical officer at the time of Santa Cruz Community Health, which was identified to be the continuity clinic site for the family medicine residents as they started into their program. So through the requirements that ACGME has, you need to have a site. Essentially, it's called a site director, who is really the main clinical lead of the family medicine of the continuity clinic where the residents would do their 3 years of continuity family medicine training. So by virtue of that, I was brought on early before the residency even began to identify and participate in creating the application, because obviously the ACGME wants to see, like, where are the residents going to be training, where's the library, where are the spaces, the meeting space, things like that. And this was back in 2022, so just on the tail end of COVID, right, as this was happening.
Yeah.
And we were literally in the process of building a new health center in Live Oak in Santa Cruz, while this was all playing out. So, I'm literally with Dr. Walt Mills, who became the inaugural program director of the program, going through the facility, taking pictures where walls were still being built and pods were still being made, and there wasn't any furniture, kind of envisioning this is the space where our residents will be learning how to become family medicine physicians. And so, of course, ACGME wants to see all the technical pieces, the spaces, and what's the practice like. And so I was on one side of that, preparing that offering to ACGME, and on the other side, on the clinic side, I was really championing the clinic becoming a partner in this process. So I was kind of working in both sides, where I'm hyping and pitching this to our board and our leadership team, like, why would we ever want to do this sort of thing? And then answer the same question to the ACGME: how can you have a program here? What's it going to be like? So it was really exciting time to be like on the ground, like below the ground floor, even just making this actually happen after many, many years of envisioning really needing to have a graduate medical education space in Santa Cruz County. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So just a quick backup for those who aren't familiar with the area. Santa Cruz is below the Bay Area,
Yep.
and just next door to Monterey, and so the Central Coast is um, you know not exactly GME naive. There had been a program at Natividad in Salinas for quite some time,
That's right.
but this kind of was one of the first, right, in very recent times. And I think it was probably the first in Santa Cruz.
It was the first medical residency in Santa Cruz County.
Yeah.
That's right. Yeah, exactly. and
So
the first
that's a
that's
lot of,
proximate to, northern Monterey County, right? Because we're kind of in this um, training desert, if you will, between the programs in San Jose, like O'Connor, Stanford, and Kaiser, I believe they have a program there, and then Natividad in Salinas. So,
right.
that, and so to identify, wow, we're an amazing place to be a physician, geographically, clinically, the partners, and we can talk about really the environment that allowed this opportunity
Yeah.
to be born. Um, but so why aren't we able to retain and attract new physicians to this area? And so why not train them here? And fingers crossed. Well, part of my job in the program is to ensure that some of them, hopefully more than not, will stay in this area and continue to be active members of our medical community.
This next year, the academic year 26-27, will be the third year of the
That's
first
right.
class, correct?
That's
Yeah.
right.
So
That's
you
right.
will know
We'll know what's going to happen.
a year
Yeah, that's
from
right.
now, plus,
Hmm.
I did this actually recruit anybody to stay in the area?
That's right, exactly. Yeah, and we're having conversations now with the residents, so the current second year residents who will be third years and will graduate in 2027. You know, now they're really thinking about it, like what's my career going to be like, and will I prefer inpatient, outpatient, or OB, or like full? How much of the family medicine spectrum am I going to be a part of, or do I want to be faculty, and do I want to keep teaching? So it's exciting for them, of course, as residents who can now start on, take their course through medicine. But it's really exciting for us to see this evolving. And we talked about um, recruitment into the
Yes.
county, and what has been really magical and powerful has been retention, as you want to call it. Like how many more physicians who are teaching are excited about their jobs, are taking on new responsibilities because they get to teach, they get to be involved in this bigger system, they get to be a part of this new community of faculty, and it just brings a lot more joy into their clinical lives that they may not have experienced since they graduated from residency themselves, potentially decades ago. And so the power to retain clinicians who want to teach, whether it's the community physician who has a resident there, doing ortho cases, a couple times a week, or the core faculty who are in the clinics and teaching residents almost every day. All of us are part of this new community of faculty who are now, participating in the growth and development of our next generation of clinicians. So it's it's incredible.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, it's a great experience.
Um,
Yeah,
describe the day the first class of residents came on board. So I think so many, and we sort of talked about this before we started
yeah,
recording, but there's a very big difference between you have residents, they've always been there. Every year there's a new crop of them coming in.
yes,
But right before, there are no residents in these new programs,
that's
and
right.
the change must be just amazing.
It was pretty. I mean, and it wasn't just overnight, right? I mean, it was pretty clunky. Right?
It's
It was
clunky.
clunky. And not to mention that, so we were in a new health center, so new program, new health center ish, a year and a half in, and we also had launched a new electronic health record. That
Oh,
piece of cake, piece of cake.
nothing going on
So
around
yeah, so
here.
no big deal. So in some sense, it was kind of a great environment because we were already kind of up to our ears in chaos, and we didn't. So we were very kind to ourselves and to the residents, and we had prepared quite a lot about what is the impact, what will the impact be on our clinical experience in the health center where we hadn't had learners before, and we could talk about what that transition was like. But to go from having an occasional, sub-I from different schools to having who we might have one week and then else be gone the next week, to having a consistent crop of first years, it really changes it changes everything. It really does change everything, from the dynamics of the care team to the financial outlook of the organization. It really has. So we were prepared for that. We knew what to expect, and so we were quite kind to ourselves as far as what the impact on productivity would be like, and communicating out to patients, and having the residents become the primary care providers themselves, and
Yeah.
assigning patients to their panels before residency even started, really embracing that early on. Um, and having the residents have a whole month of their onboarding essentially where they're integrating into their whole experience, not just the health center, but their whole residency intern experience. So that helped a lot too. So even though residency began like somewhere around June 28th or so, the residents I think started about a month or month and a half after that, as far as starting their clinical space, clinical activities in the health centers.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
So, so the continuity clinic would be all 3 years of the family medicine residency, right?
that's right.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. So it's really
Amazing.
their main, where they identify with the most, as far, I mean, the hospital, of course, I mean, a Dominican hospital where they're doing all their inpatient experience, whether it's family medicine or specialties. And that's where the academic center is, so to speak, where all the teaching happens. So that's a main hub. And then their outpatient experience is really at the health centers. And something that what made it easier and more fulfilling, I think, for all involved was that we already had a very strong care team structure in the health center where we had, you know, it was easy to identify who's the PCP, MA teamlet, and the nurse involved with several teamlets, and who's in which rooms, and having a space, like a very open pod-like space where there's a lot of camaraderie and communication already.
Mhm.
And early on, we decided that we would not create a separate resident experience, but we would integrate them into that same highly, functional structure, care team structure. So instead of
Mhm.
having like the resident clinic and everyone else is off to the side, I was on the gold care team and I had my regular MA and another provider with their MA and our nurse, et cetera. And I had three residents on the gold team, right? And
Okay.
we would, so and that was replicated across all of our care teams. And so they really became completely enveloped into that structure, as opposed to having a separate structure to create and then operate on its own. Of
Yeah.
course, we need to it's like a multiplier. We needed to have special program managers and people coordinating that, of course. But as far as the workflows and understanding how the MA provider relationship worked and integrating into behavioral health and um, communication with patients and panels, that was already created, and the residents just got you know enveloped by that.
Yeah.
So and really the feedback we've gotten has been really incredible. I mean, I remember in my training way back when, clinic was kind of like the afterthought. It was the last thing. Oh, I've got to like haul over to the clinic from the hospital and I'm exhausted. And, it was kind of like do I really have to do that? But we've really made it front and center. It's clinic first. And so the residents they love it. They love the experience being in clinic, and they feel like they're part of that whole environment and really giving a lot of themselves to the patient care that's happening there.
Oh, wonderful.
Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit about, so you mentioned it, but teaching residents versus teaching medical students, how would you sum that up?
Yeah. It there it's different. It's both challenging and joyful in different ways, I would say. Um,
Okay.
yeah, and the ability for residents, even interns, to operate, independently, goes a long way. So we might have two residents, like we created the structure of a 2-to-1, where two residents, interns especially, would have one faculty who wasn't seeing any of their own patients. So that helped with my job as a preceptor was focusing on supporting the residents and their flow and their experience, and of course quality and guiding them clinically. From the medical student perspective, it was more about a kind of a shared experience. They're my patients. They're assigned to me. It's my schedule, and I want to create time for you to really lean into the skills that you're building as a third or fourth year, usually medical student. So a lot of the time that might be intensive history taking or doing a complete physical exam, And then, together we might come up with a plan, and, I'll have to go back into the room and discuss the plan in, great detail, or, support the medical student doing that. So it's, it's a lot more of the, side by side teaching, I would say. So it's a little bit more time consuming in that sense. And there's a little bit more juggling, because it's tricky. I might see a couple patients while the medical student takes an hour, rightfully as they should, to see one, or I'll see three and they see, right. And so that's challenging. However, you get the excitement and the enthusiasm that a medical student has, because they're not tied to all of the duties that a resident might be responsible for, like answering messages from the hospital, or knowing they have an in basket that they have to follow up on, and things like that. So they're both, you have to, preparation is really the most important piece for either of them. I think the hardest part was when a student might show up and they're like, "Oh, I'm shadowing you. I'm working with you today." I'm like, "Oh, well, I would have liked to know," that sort of a thing. But that's solvable, right? That's very solvable. I think that just requires communication, and the residency, the GME and the undergraduate medical experience feed off of each other. When you can really have both of them operating, cooperating, it works. It works much better.
Right.
Learning from each other. Yeah. Yeah.
So, have you had experience teaching MD and DO students? Maybe not side by side, but sort of it's a slight shift, but it's
Yes.
doable.
Oh, yeah. So we have MD-DO students as well as MD-DO residents, and the Santa Cruz residency program is a DO accredited residency, and that experience is open to MD residents, so MD graduates. So, so, and that was completely intentional. We have a lot of DOs. I'm a DO and myself, and there's a lot of interest in offering osteopathic philosophy and practice to our community. There's a huge need. I mean, we would have patients, lining up basically, if conceptually for osteopathic treatment. And so when the residency came, and it was, from the very beginning, like year one, we were going to be an osteopathically accredited program. That really put a focus on providing the educational experience and the medical care through both MD and DO residents.
Mhm.
I mean, MDs, if both in both cases, if they wanted, I mean, if they really wanted to seek, dual accreditation through the residency. But I think we have several, both DOs and MDs, who are doing both, and so it becomes a, a open ground essentially for all of that education to enter into, where we're not having the special DO type of experience. Everyone is exposed to it. And so the DOs themselves they could practice their osteopathic skills in their own continuity clinic, and a DO would precept them doing that.
Okay.
Or there's an osteopathic clinic itself, almost like a specialty clinic, where that's where osteopathic treatment is happening. And so all of the residents have that experience, and of course our patients all had access to that. And the students also could, tailor their experience on whether they're an MD or DO, and how much they want to be involved in the care. So it's a real nice, like, kind of cross fertilization. A lot of the MDs are seeing, like, wow, y'all are really skilled in your musculoskeletal skills, your diagnostic skills, and the patient can walk out of here feeling good because you're putting your hands on their spine or their shoulder, and they're feeling great. And so they're excited. They want to be a part of that too. And so it really provides a cool opportunity for them to get exposure and to get that extra training, and then themselves become accredited. Imagine that, an MD graduate getting accredited as a DO in a DO residency program. It's pretty great.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
Thank you for
yeah,
explaining that. I didn't know that was possible, or I didn't know
that's
that
right.
that's how the program was set up.
Yeah.
So, so do you have any tips for clinicians who are not teaching yet, who want to or considering teaching?
Yeah. Well, first is the planning part, right? And I think that's not quite a tip, like a teaching tip, but that's like preparing for teaching. You've got to figure out how the having a student or resident will impact your practice,
Mm,
and that's going to be how it impacts you as a physician, and your flow, and you know but also the people around you, right? We work in with teams. And so how is that going to impact the other staff who you're working with? So that's kind of the plan, the prep part. But if we talk about like tips for working with learners, um, like one of the first things we like to do is just ask like what do you want to get out of this experience? And it could be the experience of that week or month, kind of the bigger your rotation, or what do you want to get out of that day? Like maybe there's something that a particular clinical condition or experience you want to have. It's like what's your goal for that day, and then try to tailor that experience. So, oh, you're in your derm rotation, so we're going to find all the rashes in the clinic that you could possibly see. That sort of a thing, right? So what are you trying to get out of that day? And then I think another tip is not just to focus on the clinical practice part, but also on so observing and like taking in the medicine, but also the relational pieces, because I think that's something that residents want, is like seeing, the dynamics as a new physician with a patient or different types of patients, or with your nurse or with your MA or with other clinicians, because it's a new cultural experience too, right? Like some of us who were trained in a certain medical culture, and residency might be a different culture now with different expectations. And so, not to be judgmental or but just experiencing what it's like working with a medical situation, but also the people who are there. So really kind of cluing, and then at the end of the experience, um, how do you present feedback to the resident in a real constructive way, not just you did a great job today kind of a thing, but like learning the skills of giving feedback. And it's actually, it really is a skill set that we can learn, where are you opening up the space? Are you available? Are you in the good mind space for feedback? And am I going to give it to you? How am I going to provide the feedback? And specifically, when you did this happened, and this was the outcome, kind of more specific, or is it more of like a summative evaluation over the course of the last week? I saw this happen and that happened, and give you guidance. So they're real concrete skills that we need to learn and practice in giving feedback to residents or learners of all kinds, really. And so there are certain skill sets that you learn, and as faculty, if you're core faculty or community faculty. So that's something that the residency is trying to do, is really open up the curriculum, especially in that area, so that we can guide all of our faculty in giving really solid and constructive feedback to the residents.
Just a quick question, technical. Does Morehouse then provide faculty development for everyone?
We do. So it kind of the closer you are to the core faculty, the more training you get, essentially. So I think twice a year we have like a faculty retreat. So I think, well, at least once, I believe twice, where we bring in community faculty, and we do kind of like an in-service of um, different topics. Feedback is one. Joy in medicine was one. We're going to talk about AI and medical education. That's a big topic. So we're going to have a whole retreat on that. And then we try to invite as many community faculty in to our meetings and our didactics as we can. But we know people are busy, and but they can zoom in like this and kind of get that experience if they can. And then each location, so each clinical site often has its own teaching experience. So
Oh,
the
right.
faculty at the clinic, while a preceptor may not be a faculty, they still need to learn about giving feedback, for example. So they'll have teach-ins at Watsonville Community Hospital or Dominican Hospital or Salud or at Santa Cruz Community Health, and so they're supporting all the faculty there through
Yeah.
teach-ins and so it's kind of the core faculty's responsibility to kind of take the core knowledge and to go to those sites and to train the community faculty up to
Right.
provide that. Yeah.
Right. Because all y'all are new to having residents. All of the clinics that you listed.
Yes. Well,
Yeah.
we're new. The spaces are new, but many of us have been doing this for a while. So we've been in medical education for many years. I think we counted, somewhere like 100 or over 100, cumulative years of experience in medical education before the residency program even began, just all of us who are coming from different spaces where we had
Mhm.
either taught or developed programs involving residents or students. And so there's a lot of established knowledge. And so now it's just a matter of how do we incorporate it into our current practices, which is really the most challenging part, especially because they're all working differently and um, operating in different ways. Yeah,
Right. Each clinic is unique and hospital.
that's right.
So you have such a passion for teaching. When did that develop?
Oh my gosh. I mean, we're physicians especially are just such, we're nerds. We're in school forever. I don't know, so, education is just, we're lifelong learners. We're always taking in
Mm,
more information. And so I find it really funny that you're enveloped in this highly structured, almost predictable educational experience, and then you finish, quote unquote, and then when you go into your practice, like there isn't a lot of teaching. There might be some supervision, kind of like casual, curbside teaching, things like that, but there's really no structured teaching. So it's really interesting to go from this highly structured teaching environment to sometimes nothing, where it's just you and one other person, like maybe you and your MA and a nurse who are just seeing patients. And there's really no, none of that, clinical camaraderie in teaching, that sort of thing. Um, so when folks get a chance, when physicians get a chance to be a part of that, I think it really taps into that core, foundational experience that we all had when we were in undergraduate medical school and our residency program. So, so I think that's part of it. And for me personally, it's just about creating opportunities for people to have joy and have, to love their jobs and to feel engaged in the work that they do. And so that's really my main motivator, um, has been to create structures and programs and really lean on these really powerful, strong relationships that we've built in the community for decades to grow something from it. And I think that's why the residency has been so successful, not just in its development, but in its recruitment of residents and having having the residents have such a great experience. So yeah, it's really a reflection of that. I don't think we could have pulled it off if we hadn't already had these really
mm,
strong relationships between the institutions and the people who were a part of creating it.
yeah. So,
Yeah.
what would you like to see in the future? I had heard that Dominican was first launching the FM residency, and then
Hmm.
there's interest for some others to come online within their 5-year cap.
That's right. Yeah.
And just that's just thrilling to me. Are those still on track? Or are we, what's the plan now?
I haven't been in part of that planning. I
Mm,
know that there's an interest though. I think, and like looking at what the community needs, I think psychiatry was one that's been bounced around. Having a transitional year program is one that's been discussed. So, um, but I'm not sure of the most current plans actually.
yeah.
I think this should be coming soon, right? Because it will take. Yeah, we're still we're about halfway to the 5-year cap. I guess we're almost exactly
Yeah.
there. So we'll have
The
to come up with something
applications.
pretty soon. Yeah,
Yeah,
or
we'd
like
have to
or
go.
adding more residents. I don't know that that's something that would be possible, but it's an 888 program, and so you know, do we add on a 10 to 10 or 9? I don't know. I don't. It comes down to where do we put all the folks, right? Where do
Yeah.
they go? But as we're creating these relationships, then maybe we start developing other tracks, right? So within the FM program, maybe there's different tracks that draw in and establish these pathways that then we can hold more people.
Yeah.
Um, but I'm not sure the latest on expanding. Yeah.
And just a comment, I think, about Prime Central Coast and UC Santa Cruz's interest in developing a medical school. I mean,
Oh
what
yeah.
the impact of that is probably hard to put into words, but pretty exciting stuff.
I mean, just the I remember when I first heard that, I'm like, wow, really?
Wow.
I was
Yeah.
like shocked. Yes. How long is it going to take? No, we need to go quicker. right? We need,
Well, you
but
can't.
yeah, and you can't really do that. No, but it's so exciting. I think the thrill of, we talked about, getting on the map, like literally when you're like looking at the map of California and seeing where family medicine residency programs are, and one year there was none and now there is. Like, you're a part of this amazing network now, and
Yeah,
people recognize the work that you're doing and the impact that you're having. And that's exactly true for medical education, undergraduate med education. um, so to have, and having these partnerships working and developing into these amazing opportunities for especially local students
yeah,
who have wanted to continue their education here and to continue their practice, and giving back here to this community, whereas before they could never, even think of that, without having to leave and having doing all of their training elsewhere and like finding their way back. Right now they can really spend their entire, education, not just medical, but undergraduate, and all the way through.
yeah.
um, I mean, you could have a student, elementary student who starts in the county, and they could be like on the pathway to become a, family medicine faculty in the same county.
Mm, amazing.
How
Yeah.
do you like that?
That's amazing. I
Right?
have
Without
heard
even,
that as early as 7 years of age is um, doctors start to think about becoming a doctor.
is that right?
I didn't say that right, but yeah,
Yeah, that sounds about right. Yeah.
seven elementary school on up, like
Okay.
that would be the vision. Yeah, it'll
There you
happen.
go. Yeah. I think mine was a little bit after that, but yeah, high school or so. Yeah.
Oh, wow, okay.
Yeah. I think that's right when it was. Yeah.
So, is there anything else you want to share? I don't want to take too much of your time.
Well, I mean, I think about, like we talked about what it's like to have when the residents first arrived at the
Yeah,
health center, right? And I think anyone who isn't teaching or is kind of doing like casual teaching to doing something more structured, it's kind of like that. You have to really prepare, in order for it to feel sustainable and joyful, and not just like one more thing I have to do, but something that can really sustain you. And I think that's where leaning into the partnerships comes in. I think that there's a lot of desire for their, as we're talking about med students and residents, to having more opportunities for them. And I know that it's tricky to, like, how will this really impact my day? How, and I think there are really competing forces, right? When you're talking about, um, the time it takes out of my day to have a student, sit with, work with a patient, for three times as long as that it would take me, right? Or, then the time it takes me to hear the presentation and go back into, see the patient again, right? But so yeah, it's an investment. It's an investment in that clinician staying with that practice, because they're going to love doing that if they're given the chance to, if they're given the space to. And that's what we're seeing in our practice. Um, so, but like any, smart investment, you have to plan, you have to kind of consider the environment, you have to think about like what, but it really is moving from, we kind of have this, um, medical like courtesy. Oh yeah, I have a friend who knows somebody, and so can they come shadow you? Yeah, that's cool, and people like that. But this is more intentional, I think, more focused, more mission oriented. It kind of breaks out of the kind of the hierarchical model, and we're giving opportunity for all students of all backgrounds from different parts of the world really to have this experience. And so, that is also sustaining, because it's really like that mission orientation, kind of breaking out of the hierarchical structure into more equity and more, openness and opportunity for everyone. So, that's a lot of pros, a lot of like opportunities for especially the teachers to feel really engaged. Um, I mean, I'm just last week I was in the, I did some didactics, and gave a lecture to the residents. And, I had an old lecture on pre-op clearance that I've been giving for years and years, and I kind of dusted it off, and I'm preparing it, like, oh, lo and behold, there's new guidelines that I hadn't known
right.
about before, right? So now, by virtue of me teaching them, like, I'm becoming a better physician because now I know the guidelines have changed. And so, you know, there's a lot of advantages to us as individuals to being a part of this exciting thing. And so I would encourage all folks to, you know, come shadow a preceptor, right? Come to the clinic and see what it's like, and to see, you know, as we're having, 3 classes worth of residents in the health centers next year. So
Right.
you go anywhere, you're going to run into a resident. I guarantee you, anywhere, where you are. So
How cool is
it'll be
that?
busy.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's pretty
that's
great.
really awesome.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, and then I'm helping on the other side of the Central Coast for the Community Hospital of Monterey Peninsula to start GME as well. So I'm so looking forward to, 5 years from now, like it, a whole new graduate medical education landscape
absolutely. Oh
for
yeah, that's
those.
so exciting. That's so great. Yeah, putting us on the map, right? I mean, yeah,
Exactly.
that's right. That's pretty great. Who would want to be a part of that? Super
Right.
exciting. Yeah,
All right. Well, thank you so much for
yeah,
your time, and I'm
of
going to
course.
sign off on recording here. So thank you again.
Lost my sense of humor, I've got down to Fontanelle. Hovercrafts, blow up kayaks, would have helped with angry toes, but it gave mashed potatoes. Take that meatloaf back, hi, birthday dehydrated cake